Welcome to the Tribe of Testimonies. Here you will find conversations with faithful Native American members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, sharing their stories and their love of the Savior. My name's Andrea Hales. I'm Navajo, and I'm glad that you've decided to come and join us today. My guest today is Adam Conte. He and his wife came to my house, and it was so fun to have them there. His wife just kind of sat and listened to the whole thing, and she did something on her tablet to keep her hands busy. But it was kind of fun because every once in a while she'd look up and either nod in agreement or something. And so I love when people come to the house because it's different. I love visiting with all my guests on the phone, but it's a little bit different in person because we can read each other's body language a little bit more and our facial expressions. And so I love it. I love it. This is the third week in a row I got to have a guest in my home, and I am so grateful for that. And I'm grateful that Adam came, and I hope you enjoy this conversation. I'm in my home today with Adam Conte, and I'm so grateful that he's here, and his wife is here too, Becca, right? And so this is so great to have Adam and Becca here, but we're interviewing Adam today. Adam, would you please introduce yourself in your tribal way as much as possible? If it's in your language, great. If it's not, that's fine. Not everybody speaks their language, and some languages are dead.
Okay, thank you. Sakoli, my name's Adam Conte. I'm the son of Michael Conte and Miriam Cook Conte. So on my mom's side, she's Oneida and Mohawk. On her Oneida side, our last name is Cook. And then on our Mohawk side, it's Summers. And so my grandma currently resides on the Oneida Reservation up in Wisconsin.
Cool. Great. Would you please share something that you love about your heritage as it relates to the gospel of Jesus Christ? It can be pretty much anything, a ceremony, a story, a way of life, a celebration, anything as it relates to the gospel of Jesus Christ.
Yeah, here's a story that my auntie told me growing up, and I haven't fully dove into this story, but it's something that really rang true to me for many years. And it happened when one of our great uncles passed away. And so my auntie, she went to the Mohawk Reservation to attend his funeral. And when she came home, she told us a story that one of the elders got up and spoke during the service. And basically he was saying that, in their language, there isn't a word for death. The closest translation is those who have moved on. And, it's one of the clear steps of the plan of salvation where it's, we know that there's a life after death. We know that there is a place for our spirits afterwards. And I think that a lot of indigenous cultures knew that too, especially our people. And I know a lot of talk about ancestors and being guided and all that stuff. So I think that, that story from her really resonated me as a child, thinking of wow, there's so many parallels between, traditional teaching and the gospel.
Yeah. That's really cool. And that's Mark and my husband and I just started watching the Lord of the Rings Amazon Prime series.
Oh, yeah. I've been meaning to watch that, actually.
That's has nothing to do with the gospel, but the elves at the very beginning, they don't have a word for death either. So,
perfect. That's good. They probably got that from indigenous teachings.
They could have, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's funny. But so were you raised on or near the reservation?
No, so my mom, she was born upstate New York, and then her father passed away. And so it was a crazy freak airplane crash. And it's a wild story. We've been able to do some family history where I've been able to go and interview my grandma about that era, and it's a crazy story. But basically, my grandma raised her 3 girls solo in California. And so my grandma did as much as she could to give her girls the life that she never had. And my grandma had 13 kids. My grandma had 13 brothers and sisters.
Whoa.
Sorry.
Yeah.
And, in those days, it was very rare to have that many kids survive and be able to support them all and all that good stuff. So she raised her 3 girls in California, and my mom didn't really wasn't really connected or involved in the Native community until she moved to until she went to college at BYU. And so I was raised in Arizona. My dad was from Hawaii. My mom was from Cali. And so we grew up a little bit more on like our like Filipino Polynesian side. And so my dad actually had a lot of friends from Hawaii, moved to Arizona, and they all started their own dance groups and their own halaus and their own little pocket of community. And so we grew up very surrounded by culture, by different ethnic groups, and whatnot. But we had little taste of the Native American teachings, and we learned Native American Sign Language, which was heavily influenced by, Living Legends or Four Feathers or Tribe of Many Feathers, depending on what era, Lamanite generation, depending on what area you're a part of. And so we grew up doing stuff like that. I learned how to hoop dance from Terry Godell, just like almost the rest of the other half of the world learned how to hoop dance from Terry Godell. But the story goes, they were good friends in college. He came to Arizona because he went to the World Hoop Dance competition down at the Heard Museum. And the deal was you can stay at my parents' place if you taught the boys how to hoop dance. So he taught me and my brother how to hoop dance when we were very young. And I was able to do that for, birthday parties and weddings and other, special moments for people. And so it was really cool to at least have that. And so I didn't really connect with the Native side until after college.
Wow. Where did you go to college?
I went to 4 different universities.
Okay.
I went to first Eastern Arizona College down in Thatcher. Great place. And then I went to BYU Hawaii, BYU Provo, and UVU.
Okay. And so I got your name from my friend Michael Campbell.
Right.
And how do you know Michael?
So Michael was really good friends with my mom and dad.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And so they were really good friends. And then, we're both Iroquois Nation. And so we just stay connected. And then that's actually how I met my wife, was through ROC, Remembering Our Culture, which is the group that Michael and Uvia run, where they do multicultural dancing and then also singing it for firesides and stuff like that. And so I actually met my wife 7 years ago in that dance group. That's where we officially met, first officially
Were
met.
you in the group?
I joined the singing group. So I was in
Like
Living Legends at the time.
Okay.
So I didn't really dance with them just for time reasons. But
sure.
then I
Yeah.
would go and sing. I loved the songs. I mean, I grew up on those ROC songs. My sister was in the dance group. My older cousin was in the dance group. So we would go and hear the firesides, go watch the shows. I mean, I loved ROC. And a lot of the songs helped me get through my mission.
Really?
Yeah, like I could never really connect with Motab.
Yeah.
It was just,
yeah.
it's just time and place. And there were some times where I just really needed some like soul. I just needed my soul to sing, and a lot of those songs really helped put me in a place where I could feel those feelings that I needed to feel at the time on the mission and stuff like that. So I love those songs.
Yeah, they're so great.
So good.
Yeah.
So good.
So you were telling me before we started recording that you're not real sure what your clan is. Do you want to talk about that?
So when I went to go visit the reservation, and I've only been 2 or 3 times, and when I went to go visit, we visited an elder up there, and she's recently passed, but I went to go talk to her to see what she remembers of her family, right? And she was like, "Oh, actually, your guys' family was adopted, and so we don't really know if you're Turtle Clan or Bear Clan." And after doing a little bit of research, we saw that, Bear Clan medicine and healing and all that kind of stuff. And we were like, after kind of seeing where everyone ended up in their careers, most of them ended up in the medical field. So I was like, we'll just say we're Bear Clan.
Yeah. It just feels right.
It just feels right.
Yeah.
So that was an interesting one. And we're still trying to do some research to figure out, maybe on the Mohawk side, we were Turtle, and then Oneida, we were Bear. And so maybe that's how it got mixed up. But yeah, it was just interesting.
That's really cool, though.
Yeah.
That's cool to think both of those heritages have meaning even in your life today.
Mm-hmm. Big time. it's funny because like growing up, I thought I was going to be a physical therapist.
Oh, really?
Oh yeah, like I loved being fitness. I used to help old people get into the wheelchair and then wheel them into church, wheel them into their spot, help them take the sacrament, wheel them back out to the car, help them out of their car seat, help them out of their wheelchair and back into their car. And my dad noticed, and he was like, "You're pretty good with elders and stuff like that. So maybe you should look into going into PT, because most PTs, that's the kind of age demographic that they work with." And I was like, "Yeah, that sounds like a good idea." So I went through my undergrad doing prereqs for physical therapy school, did some internships, but because I hopped schools so much, it took me a long time to get out of my program. So I never moved on to the next stage of applying for physical therapy school because I was still in my undergrad program. Because anytime a school would have a dance group that would travel on a tour somewhere, I would just move schools, join the dance group, go on tour, and then move schools again, kind of a thing. And so it's crazy. Like, honestly, like cultural performing, not just Native, but also Polynesian, has opened so many opportunities for me. And it's been awesome to not only represent the culture, but also represent like BYU or the Polynesian Cultural Center or, what other dance groups we were with. And so it's...
Well, yeah. Tell us about your temple experiences too.
So when we were... So both my parents, they met in Lamanite generation.
Okay.
And they had a lot of friends that moved down to Arizona. My dad had a lot of friends from the Polynesian Cultural Center moved to Arizona, and they started their own halal. They started their own dance groups. And so what we decided to do is every Christmas Eve, we would gather and perform at the Mesa Temple. And what we would do is Native American Sign Language or Hawaiian hula to songs about Christ. Very contemporary. Very, very contemporary. Nothing really traditional about it. Just very, very contemporary. And as a child, we did it for like 15 years. So as a child, my earliest memories of feeling the Spirit were dancing on stage, hearing songs about Christ, performing for a crowd of thousands, and just facing the Mesa Temple all lit up, and it was just gorgeous. And I remember multiple times as a child feeling just like the Spirit, that warmth, that the connection between, when you fuse culture and religion, it's magic, right? That's the best way I can explain it. But the interesting thing is when you think about it in the past, it was the same thing, right? Today's world, things are so divided and adopted and moved around and adjusted and all that kind of stuff. But, that feeling, like when people say in the cultural teachings, pray to the Creator, it just reestablishes what we hear at church. Pray to your Father in heaven, right? It's just, I think what we picture in our minds might be a little bit different. Growing up, a lot of times in our generation, we had parents that were raised in the church. So we grew up going to church. And with a lot of people, especially here in Utah, they feel a lot of pressure. They feel a lot of, this isn't me, this isn't authentic, it's cookie cutter, everything's the same thing. Or it's the flip side, people are fake, it's not real. They're just doing it because they want to go to church on Sunday, all that kind of stuff. But when you hear it from a cultural side, it's like, give thanks to your Creator, help your brothers, help your sisters. It almost becomes back to its roots, and so I think that's what the gospel of Christ is all about. It is that authenticity. It is the real, it is that charity of Christ, and sometimes, depending on what setting you're in and environment, sometimes you can forget that. Sometimes you can do things for the wrong reasons. I grew up doing things for the wrong reasons. I'm sure everyone has gone through something like that, right? I used to help put away chairs and help mow people's things because I loved when people said, "Look at Adam. Look how good. Look, he's a good kid. Look at him." I loved when people said that, right? But later on, as I got older, it's like that doesn't motivate you as much anymore at a certain age. So you're like, do I continue to do the things I know I'm supposed to? Do I continue serving? Right? It's not until I started connecting back with my native roots that it brought back that authenticity. It brought back, I'm doing this because I want to help. I'm doing this because I want to serve somebody with no thought of reward coming back to me. And I'm still in that journey. I'm still learning that. I've had a lot of great mentors along the way in the Native community here that, they're my uncles, right? the uncles, their responsibilities is to keep you, make sure your head's on right, to keep you humble, to make sure you're doing things for the right reasons, So I've been called out a couple times when things didn't feel authentic or sincere, and I appreciate it. It's sometimes it's not very normal to call someone out, but I respected them as my uncles, and I really appreciated them telling me, because I was able to rethink, am I doing this for the right reasons? Am I doing this the right way? Am I taking the proper steps to make sure it is sincere? And so it's been an awesome journey. And I think that connecting with the native teachings has even dug deeper the roots of my testimony for the gospel of Jesus Christ, just because there's so many parallels. And kind of back to my story about the Mesa Temple, it's like when you fuse culture with religion or the gospel of Jesus Christ, it just amplifies that feeling even more for me. It made it real, right? Like there were times afterwards where there'd be a lot of non-members in the crowd, and they would come up to us, and because we were talking about was the Book of Mormon, about Christ visiting the Americas, like all that stuff. And they were like, wait, so you're telling me that Christ visited America? And they're like, yeah, our ancestors saw Christ. And it's crazy to think about that, right? Because, the rest of the world thinks he only resided on that side of the world, right? There's only a history of him on that side of the world. But to say he also visited the Americas and here's the record of it, it's like, it's wild. It's crazy. So it's for me, it's just awesome. I just think it gets my blood boiling a little bit, like not in a good way. You know what I mean? Like
Excited.
in a very excited way. Very, very excited way.
So, what age would you say that you personally recognized the truthfulness of the Book of Mormon because of?
I was probably like 13 or 14. There was a young men's camp where we needed to read the Book of Mormon in its entirety before we can go to the camp. And so I really wanted to go to the camp. And so I was a terrible reader. Anyone who's listening who is a terrible reader, if you're a youth, keep at it. Like if you can get good at one thing, if you could look good at reading and comprehending and understanding what you're reading, like you can do anything in life, And even if you don't get to that point, there's a lot of other factors that make you successful. But I would read about 2 chapters a day as a teenager. Like I look back on it, like that's wild, right?
That's a lot. Yeah.
That's a lot. And during that time is when I really distinctly remember having that feeling of this is true. This book is true. But I do have to give credit to that time where I know how to recognize the Spirit. Because a lot of times there's a lot of video games, a lot of distractions, not a lot of moments that cultivate where people can feel that. And I do have to give credit to those special moments when I'm on stage, hearing the songs about Christ, surrounded by my brothers and sisters, and just looking at a temple. Like that feeling I got while reading the Book of Mormon was a very familiar feeling. It wasn't I've never felt this before, or this is a huge explosion within my brain. It was a very, very familiar feeling, and it went back to like, this is a feeling of like comfort. This is a feeling of warmth that this is right. This is true, And so around 13, 14 was when it became really solid.
So like, I don't know what your musical background is other than performing culturally, but I'm just envisioning, like, every time you talk about how you just felt the truthfulness of it, like when 2 different notes or 2 different instruments are playing the same note, and when they're actually in tune with each other, that is like you can feel that. Yes. And when they're not, you can feel that too. Yeah. And I feel it kind of like that's what's going through my head right now when you're talking about, you could feel it.
Yeah. And I think that, I've had a lot of friends who, as they've gotten deeper into like native teachings, they kind of separate. That's like their way to separate away from, the gospel of Jesus Christ and stuff like that. But to your point, for me, it was they were on the same tune. It made it even a more beautiful experience, and I hope whoever's listening, to identify those parallels. And I hope that those parallels will deepen your conversion to Christ, compared to, separating, just because there's a huge difference between the gospel of Jesus Christ and Mormon culture, right? There's a huge difference between the two. And it's, it depends where you really live and the people you're around and stuff like that. So I think, definitely find those parallels.
Yeah, I love that. So where did you serve your mission?
I served my mission in the Philippines.
And you have part Filipino.
Yeah.
So
and
that's kind of cool.
I actually knew I was going to serve in the Philippines since I was 6 years old.
What? Nuh-uh.
Yeah. Sorry, babe. So basically my grandma is a convert, from the Philippines. She moved to Hawaii with her husband, who was in the military, and she would walk her 6 boys down the street and back just to get the wiggles out. And she would notice that there was some people building something. So she would talk and all that kind of stuff. And she would come home and talk to her husband. Hey, I met the morons today. And, it's just a big family funny joke. And, good thing my grandpa knew a little bit. Oh, those are the Mormons, da, 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 da. And so over the course of like 3 to 4 years, she would take the missionary lessons. When she would get pregnant again, she would say, okay, let's take a break, come back in. And so ultimately she joined the church. And my father was the only one out of 6 brothers to remain active in the church. And ever since I was a little boy, ever since I was 6 years old, she would say, you're going to serve in the Philippines. You're going to serve in the Philippines.
Oh.
And I was like, okay, whatever, grandma. Right. But when I opened my mission call, it said Naga, Philippines. So it's cool. My grandma. I was like, yeah, you must have a connection up there. But no, when I got home, I was able to speak Tagalog with her. I lived with her for a little bit before she passed, and
that's even better.
Yeah, it was.
That's awesome.
We would play card games and we would cheat. We'd speak Tagalog to each other, all that good stuff and whatnot. So it was a really, really sweet experience to be with her, for a little bit.
Oh, I love that so much. So you were talking about the Bear Clan and the Turtle Clan, and how the Bear Clan seems to have more healing in their DNA. We'll say that.
Yeah.
What is your profession now?
So that's the funny thing is that I grew up thinking I was going into physical therapy, and I was getting all ready for it, and I took a video class my senior year and I fell in love. And for the next probably 5-6 years, I dedicated everything just to video work. And right now I work for a marketing agency called Chamber Media. I'm the senior creative director, and so I manage about 8 teams of creatives who make content on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, for Google, whatever. Like, we come up with the strategies, we make the content, we deliver it, and we have in-house ad buyers to make all that stuff. So it's totally different. It's very in the creative space. And it's funny because when I was younger, I'd get made fun of for trying to be creative. My brother's an artist, a very, very good artist. So he would draw something, and he was about 1.5 years younger than me. He would draw something, and it was just gorgeous. I would try, and it would just look like a child. It was terrible. Anyway, the funny thing is that I ended up in the creative space, and now my brother's in dental school.
Oh.
And so we've both switched places. And it's a really cool because, like, we're kind of noticing that we're very, very well-rounded because of it, right? And we hope there's a higher reason for it. But because of my background with, the anatomy, the chemistries, formulas, biomechanics, like all that kind of stuff, my brain works in a different way. So when I do work with creatives, I am very good at managing the creatives because I can speak the creative language, but I'm also good at the analytical, what needs to happen side. On my brother's end, he's very, very artistic. And so if you ever want someone in your mouth drilling down whatever or making something for you, like, you're going to want his hands. He has the steadiest hands. He's an artist, right? And so it's just in a medical side. And so he also is learning the formulas and the logic and like the analytical and then also the science behind that. But he's also very well-rounded because he has also a very, very creative mind. So it's really, really cool how that all ended up the way it did.
Yeah. Well, Heavenly Father knows way more than
way
we do.
Way more. And I honestly felt like I was guided. Just because, like, it didn't make sense for me on my senior year when I was 20. I was 27 when I graduated. undergrad, it didn't make sense for me to start a brand new career after spending 8 years in an undergrad program, right? Like it just didn't make sense. But once I noticed that, there was a big need for it in the Native community, I went full in, and it's the fruits have been great. And on the side, so my main job is chamber media, mostly because of COVID. But before COVID, I started a company called The Arrow's Journey. And it's basically, we made highlight videos of Native American youth just to get more content online of Native people.
Oh, wow.
And they didn't even need to do anything special. It wasn't like Olympic gold medalist or anything like that. It was like, hey, I'm the first generation college student. I'm learning how to speak Navajo from an app. I'm a dancer. I'm the first lawyer to come out of my tribe, right? Like we highlighted a lot of different youth, and it was just everyday people. It wasn't, like I mentioned, Nike sponsored athlete or anything like that. It was just everyday people. And so from there, I've been able to travel the country to different reservations, working with different tribes, tribal leaders, different organizations, nonprofit organizations, fundraising projects, having to do with tribal communities trying to uplift themselves, right?
And
it's
what's
been
the name of that?
The Arrow's Journey.
The Arrow's Journey.
So that stopped when COVID stopped. And every once in a while we'll work on a project. But from that, me and my business partner have been able to make our name for ourselves in the community. And so we still do projects for people, and we still do projects here and there. But our it's kind of like our side hustle now. But it was a truly eye-opening experience where we were able to, interview kids and interview youth and interview tribal leaders of like, what's on your mind? Like, what are the big issues of the tribes and of the youth? And then we'd interview the youth. What's on your mind? Like, what are some things that you're concerned about? And some of the things were heartbreaking, some of the things were very motivating. And so it was very, really awesome when we were able to take that knowledge and move it into the next project and move it into the next project and move it into the next project. It was a big, big learning experience, and I feel very grateful to be a part of that, or at least have had that experience.
That's really cool. How many reservations did you visit?
Oh, man, we were in a different reservation almost every weekend. We were in Montana, Washington, Oklahoma, New York, Florida, just Arizona, Utah, California. We were all over the place, and it would go from nonprofit and the Dakotas, North and South Dakota, Pine Ridge and Standing Rock. We would do some projects with them, and the Redwoods up in California, that area. And so we were able to do a lot of work. And sadly, COVID, we lost all of our contracts at that point. We were tapping into some major organizations. We were tapping into, cultural centers now and, stuff for like really steady work. And then we lost all of our contracts with COVID. And from that point, I was able to work on a project with Rizal Benali. She is a NYU director student. And I was able to work on a online documentary where we traveled the country and interviewed Native artists and how COVID has affected them. And It's a really, really cool project. I think it took us about 2 months to film every weekend. It was crazy because I would work during the week, Monday through Thursday. Thursday night, I would fly out to the reservation or wherever the artist was living. And then we'd film Thursday, Friday, Saturday, fly back Sunday, and then back to work on Monday again.
Whoa.
And that was for about 2 months straight, and I was exhausted.
Oh my goodness.
But it was an awesome experience, just meeting everybody and knowing how it just affected them. Like COVID was such a crazy time. And there was a lot of good that came from it and a lot of, heartache and sadness that came from it. And what I mean by good is just so many people were able to slow down and rethink life. So many artists were able to think about, why am I doing this? And just because beforehand it was this show, that show, I have to have a piece ready for this and a piece ready for that they were missing, in their words, what was most important to them, which was their family. But because of COVID, a lot of those shows got shut down. They were able to slow down and kind of get rooted again and spend that time with their family that they're like, oh my gosh, I almost missed this, and my heart goes out for all those families that were affected by it. But again, just trying to be optimistic and positive that a lot of people were able to, get rooted and slow down because of that time.
So you were on reservations on weekends. Were you able to attend church
Every
anytime?
once in a while to be able to find one. It wasn't often. I'll have to admit it wasn't often, but every once in a while we'd get ear of something, and I would try to attend and whatnot, but it wasn't very often.
No. So you didn't meet very many members.
No. It was funny because every once in a while I'd kind of get a hint of like,
you're like,
are you
kind of have those words there.
Yeah, like, are you, and that's what I mean by like the parallels between the two. And it's really awesome just because like there's a lot of great Native people out there who live by, cultural teachings. One of my favorite cultural teachings is something that I was taught just recently, actually. Basically, we did a workshop for BYU, like teacher program, and one of the speakers came up, and he was Native, and basically what he said was, how do we measure success, right? And in Western society, capitalism, it's how much money can you make? It's how fast can you climb the corporate ladder? All that kind of stuff. But he said, like, in a lot of indigenous cultures and in his tribe, a lot of people are considered successful when they can find out what their role is in their society or in their community. And I thought that was just awesome. It just came down to service, right? It's a gospel teaching, service, serve your brothers, serve your neighbor, love your neighbor. And basically what he said is that when a young man or young woman knows what they have to offer their community, they're considered successful. So whether you're a hunter, you're a gatherer, you're a healer, whatever that is, you're considered, that's a success, right? It's when you can find out what you can do for others, you're a success, right? It's so opposite of what the world teaches, and so it's right in line with the gospel of Jesus Christ. It's right in alignment. It's like, for me, every time there's a new parallel that comes up, my mind just gets blown. It's like, oh my gosh, it's so beautiful. It's beautiful,
Yeah, that's way cool. Some of the things you've talked about have made me think back to the scriptures in the Doctrine and Covenants. The Lamanites will blossom as a rose.
Oh yeah.
And that's been on my mind a lot lately, but you have talked about that without bringing those words up.
Mm-hmm. And it's beautiful because like a long time ago I was like, blossom like a rose, what does that mean? Are we just gonna take over the world? Are we gonna have all the big banks? Are we gonna own all the land back? Like a lot of times, like that's what I thought as a kid what that meant, right? And I had a mentor at the time explain, like, blossoming as a rose means that they'll understand the gospel again. They'll accept the gospel again. And I think that, I think that's true, but also I think that there's a lot of other meanings to that as well. There's a lot of media right now around Native Americans. There's a lot of media around indigenous peoples. There's a lot of great TV shows coming out and content and stuff like that. I mean, I'm in that world, right? So I can't help but notice when those things come out, and the spotlight's coming on indigenous communities, indigenous writers, indigenous content creators. It's a full force. In the next 10 years, we're going to see some beautiful stuff come out. Beautiful. And it's not just going to be, just TV shows and stuff like that. I mean, I think this last week we had a buddy sing in an opera house. He was singing powwow songs with hand drum. He was hand drumming, and Abraham. Yeah.
Yeah. I've interviewed him.
Yeah.
You can look back, whoever's listening. Abraham Thomas.
Abraham Thomas. He's an awesome guy. Actually, he saved my sister's life, actually.
Yeah.
A crazy story, like how it's all connected. But basically it's like, I'm telling you, in the next 10 years, it's going to be beautiful. And a lot of the teachings, I think, I can't remember the saying. It's like, the future is indigenous. That's what it is. The future is indigenous. And the way I interpret that, because like, a lot of people can interpret things different ways. The way I interpret that is the indigenous ideology and the indigenous way of life and the way that you interact with others. I think more and more people are going to adopt it, and I think that indigenous way of life is there's a lot of parallels to the gospel of Jesus Christ. Like there are so many similarities between the two, and I don't think you can do one without the other, right? And so, I think it's gonna be awesome.
So what are some future goals that you have that you're working on?
I've had some. I think the biggest one in my mind is, well, the funny thing is that I was the last grandchild to get married. So my grandmother on the reservation was like, Adam, you are my last hope. You need to marry a native. Right? And it's okay. I married a half Filipina, half white, beautiful woman. Perfect for me. And I've actually read a couple books about blood quantum and about, how all that works and stuff like that. And so basically my goal, I have someone I look up to here in the Native community, and what they've been able to do with their kids has been awesome. The dad's Native, the mom's white, but together they've been able to teach all the traditions and customs and the way of life of, just indigenous living. And that's my big goal. I want to have enough knowledge, be a part of the community so my kids can grow up in it. And I've already talked with my wife, and she's for the people. She's big into culture as well. She's from Virginia originally, and so she grew up around a lot of Filipinos, a lot of ethnic different groups, and that's what we want for our kids. And we want to build a home setting where they can feel comfortable and to learn that, and to have the aunties and the uncles, quote unquote aunties, uncles, the fake ones, the real ones, all that kind of stuff, to be a part of that community, just because like it was such a big part of our lives that we want that for our kids. So my big goal that I'm working on right now is to learn more about my own tribe. I've been very blessed to work with a lot of different tribes, but Wisconsin's really far from Utah.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
I definitely, we've been planning a trip out there. I do video work, and so I've been trying to work with some youth groups up there, or just the media department that they have with the tribe, to see if there's something that we can do to work on a project together. I know that there are a couple seamstresses up there that make ribbon shirts who are just like, hey, I'll make you a ribbon shirt if you record this event for me, and all that kind of stuff. And so we're trying to figure out a way to kind of reconnect with that community up there, and whatnot. And so that's the goal, to have more specific teachings based on our tribes, but we definitely fully intend on adopting other teachings as we learn about them and as we hear about them and stuff. So that's like the big goal that we're working on right now. Another big goal, just for for my own personal growth, is to continue to work on Native projects. And what I really want to do with my media side and my creative side is I want to build and make content that, kind of to your point, when two instruments are on the same tune, how beautiful that can be. Those are the kind of videos that I want to make. And I actually did make one recently. Basically, it is a short film with no talking at all, about genealogy work.
Cool.
And we had one of my family's old friends from college. They're mission presidents in Canada, and they had a First Nations fireside, which is really, really cool.
Yeah, the one that just happened.
I think it was last year.
No, the one that 2 weeks ago.
Oh, so the one last year. In Calgary, yes. So the Crowfoots are I don't know if you know the Crowfoots. They're my cousins. Okay. And so they were part of the video that they made a year ago. So a year ago, I was a part of that one, not the one just happened 2 weeks ago. Okay. But basically, their whole point was, because the Calgary Temple is getting rededicated. I think that's what the case was. It was being reopened soon. So they wanted a video to kind of like get people excited about going to the temple again, and genealogy work and everything like that. So it was when I had long hair. And so I acted, I directed, and I edited the video. I had a buddy come and shoot it for us. But basically, it was just kind of telling a story about a young Native family, them doing genealogy work. And we were able to get some really cool actors who are native, and also have them in a traditional native attire, where it's kind of like, these are our ancestors, we're doing the work for them.
Oh my word! When is that available?
They showed it at the fireside, but I don't think I released it. But I can send you the link.
Yeah.
If you wanna watch it. I can send you the link to it. It's a very, very short watch. I'm pretty sure it's like 3 minutes long, not too long at all. And
so can I post that on Tribe of Testimonies?
Yeah,
Okay.
that's totally fine. And so those are the kind of that's the kind of content I want to make going forward. Just putting natives in a good light, and
helping them feel like who they are is valid.
Totally valid.
Yeah.
And it's it's just awesome. And I think in the near future I'll be able to make doing some video work with Living Legends here coming up pretty soon. Just anything cultural, anything indigenous, anything cultural that has to do with the gospel of Jesus Christ. I think it's just a beautiful, beautiful combination.
That's so great. I'd love to ask this question. I haven't asked it for I don't know how many interviews, but I love to hear people. Are there any tender mercies that are not too private to share that you could share with us, tender mercies that indicate to you that Heavenly Father is aware of you, Adam?
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, the first couple that came to mind were, first off, being able to got called to serve in the Philippines.
Yeah.
I mean, I was able to return to the Philippines with my grandma and meet my whole side of the family.
You did?
Yeah, and I'm the only one living now that has connections to that side of the family. And so plus my wife is Filipina, so it's like we're going to go visit next year. We're going to go visit her family, my family.
Oh,
that's
awesome.
All that kind of stuff. So we're really excited, and that's a big tender mercy. In my patriarchal blessing, it said that I'll be called to serve in a place where my cultural background will qualify me.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
That's a cool thing to hear.
Yeah. And it was just like, well, it all makes sense. It's very, very aware of, just what I needed, and it kind of sounds a little silly, but, you can't help but to compare sometimes, right? Very human. And I had buddies serving in New York, Texas, who are learning how to eat 6-course meals and talk to CEOs of organizations, and it had to be very posh and know exactly what you're talking about. And I served in the Philippines, where I was just happy to survive. Like I was, we were lucky when we found someone who could read. Like we were out in the boonies, like out in the mountains. Like I was always up in the mountains or by the ocean. I was very rare in the city. And so we had very, very humble people, very, very humble people. And, it was exactly what I needed. It was exactly what I needed on that end. Another tender mercy that has to do with like the native side is that, a tender mercy is that, I was able to be guided to a skill set that allowed me to have a place in the community. And what I mean by that is, like, if I was a personal physical therapist or something like that, it would have been I feel like very difficult for me to find my place to contribute to the community, because video work was needed so much in the Native community. I was able to contribute that very, very quickly. And because of that, I was able to start my career very early with Native organizations, and I was able to meet very influential people. And from that, I've been able to work on projects still 5-6 years later. And for me, I think that was a very tender mercy, just because all the things I've been able to hear and listen to, it's kind of gearing me towards like who I want to be. What impact do I want to have on the community? And it's really shaped a lot of my decisions. It really has. And, just because like growing up, I was pretty cocky. I was really good at everything, and a lot of things came easily to me, except for like academically, like anything besides academic, things came pretty easily. And, through going to the Philippines, being surrounded by so many humble people and their humble conditions, and then joining the Native community and just seeing how much work that needs to be done, right? Like I decided from a very early age that I wanted to be an influence for good. I wanted to be a role model if I could, and I wanted to help others find their way, just because I believe that every person has their own journey that they're on. And if that journey means you have to go left, right, up and down to the very bottom pits, if that's your journey, that's your journey, and that's what's going to make you strong. And I want to be that source of light and that source of motivation for people to think, oh, he believes in me, or he's supporting me, or just along those lines. And I'm super blessed to have a wife that's on the same page. We've talked about it quite often, where we want to be in the community helping, people. I mean, because we're not old by any means, but we're a part of organizations and groups where people are 18, 19, super young. And we remember what that's like. That wasn't very long ago for us. And the world is full of a lot more temptation now than it was back in the day. And it's easily to go here, there, lose your way, all that kind of stuff. And so we really want to be that, power couple of like, hey, let us kind of share our knowledge with you, what we've learned, but whatever you decide, we love you. And, we hope you can always come to us if you ever need anything. That's what we want to be, for people, because we've had people like that in our lives. We want to pass it on, and I think a lot of that does come from the gospel of Jesus Christ, that we want to serve our brothers. We want to look out for, the people around us. We want to serve because we know we just want to do it. It's going to be good for them. It's going to be good for us. It's going to help build the kingdom, all the good stuff.
Yeah. I love it. I am so glad that we've had this time. I have one final question for you. What does it mean to you to know that you belong to the tribe of Israel?
This is something that has been on my mind ever since seminary, like long time ago. A lot of it has to do with the Abrahamic covenant for me. And, I've researched, what is the Abrahamic covenant? What is it? What are the promises I make? What are the promises in return? All that good stuff. And basically, to me, being a part of the house of Israel, what that means is I have a responsibility. I have a responsibility to help the others in the tribe of Israel to find the way. And I hope that doesn't sound too cheesy or anything like that, but I have felt the benefits of the atonement, about repentance, about letting go, about healing. A lot of these things, especially when you go through your 20s, not making a lot of good decisions, and listeners out there, I know that you're human, right? You're going to have those years and maybe decades of you're just not motivated. You can't find the reason why. You can't stop doing this or stop doing that or be motivated again. Like, we've all been there. And being a part of the house of Israel, it's our responsibility to help each other to stay motivated. There's going to be those times, up and downs, right? It's going to be tough. That's what this whole life's about. One of my favorite things that one of my mission presidents told me was, he showed us this wooden ball that was carved out of, I think it was monkey pod. And there was a lot of just imperfections behind it, but there was a nice polish on it and it was beautiful. It's like, the reason that this is beautiful is because of those ridges. It's because of those dents. That's why this is beautiful. And that took a really big toll on me, because I grew up a very, very much a perfectionist. I would have panic attacks and anxiety attacks on my mission because I didn't think I was doing enough. I didn't think I was good enough, and it can be very paralyzing. And if anyone learned anything from hearing this podcast or hearing from me, it's to somehow let go of that guilt, let go of the shame, hand that over to Christ, and your life will be so much happier. Your life will be so much more full. There were plenty of times where it would just paralyze me, where I just didn't think it was worth it. There were times on my mission where I didn't think it was worth it. And I would email my dad, and I was like, Dad, I don't think I can do it anymore, man. And he was just saying, I totally understand. It's really tough, but, you know, stay on the bus. And I was like, what does that mean? Right? And he was saying sometimes you're at the front of the bus, and sometimes things are hard and you go to the back of the bus. And he was like, as long as you don't get off the bus, you're going to be okay. You know, and that really helped me. You know, I would take a day or two to recoup, mental health, you know, do whatever I needed to, you know, kind of get back at it. And then I was just like, hey, I'm just at the back of the bus right now, but I'm still on. You know, and that for me, especially for, you know, those who are having a really hard time to go to church, having a really hard time talking to anybody about anything religious because you just feel so much guilt or shame or whatever, just because like I was given a great life. I had great parents who raised me in the church, but I still made I still made a lot of bad decisions, right? As we all do, we're human, right? And I let guilt and shame stop me from progressing, stop me from trying, I just gave up for a while, you know, and through the love of my family, I came back and I got back at it, you know, and it's been a beautiful experience during that time when I started coming back to church and got my temple recommend again. I hope that's not too personal, but once I got my temple recommend again, that's when I got reconnected with my wife, you know, and I was single for a while, and I was 31 when I got married. And, you know, in Utah, that's pretty late, but in the rest of the world, that's early, you know, like, so I'm not saying it's early or late. I think it was just the perfect time. It was the perfect time for my journey. And, you know, all that started moving and started to get things started falling into place once, you know, I started getting right again, you know, getting right with the Creator, with Heavenly Father. And it was a beautiful journey. I don't think I would have changed anything. You know, I am who I am today because of it. And, you know, for those listening, you are who you are from the stuff that you've experienced. And the key is to learn from it, to move forward, and to help others who are going through the same things, right? But ultimately, they'll have to make their own choices. But you can be there to help support them through it. And that's our goal. That's my goal, is to help others through it. You know, I remember what it's like being 19, 20, 21, back from a mission, you know, and so, yeah, if anyone's out there wants to talk more or anything like that, hit me up on Instagram. I would love to talk more about just life and the experience and the things that I did to help in my journey and whatnot. I hope that answers your question, but ultimately, yeah, being a part of the House of Israel, that's what it means to me, having that responsibility.
Love it. Thank you so much, Adam, for being here. It's been awesome.
Awesome. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
This weekend was our steak conference. Both my husband and I had a hard time paying attention. Man, I think we have had so much hard stuff going on in our lives that we're just having a hard time with the basics. It's not that we're not reading our scriptures. It's not that we're not praying. It's not that we're not attending church. It's just that we're having a hard time focusing on things beside the problem in our life right now. And I told you last week that I kind of felt like that with General Conference even. Like I'm just having a hard time. I reread this thing on my wall that I always have up. It says, "Don't discard the counsel, but hold it close. If someone you trusted handed you what appeared to be nothing more than sand with the promise that it contained gold, you might wisely hold it in your hand a while, shaking it gently. Every time I have done that with counsel from a prophet, after a time the gold flakes have begun to appear, and I have been grateful." It's from 1997. Elder Eyring said it. So it's been a while since he said it, but I think that that's okay. Like, sometimes we just need to hold on to it, even if we're not at the moment. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense, or it's not it feels like it's not applicable right now or whatever. Like I said, Mark and I were having a hard time. I was for sure having a hard time. But if I am able to hold on to what the prophet says, and if I keep giving it the value and attention, it will benefit me. And actually, I think it has. Like, when President Nelson asked us to hear him, like, that was his catchphrase for a little bit. At first, I was like, I don't know. But then there were social media posts about people, how do I hear him? How do I hear him? And I was like, oh yeah, I gotta hold that one. And the gold flakes have appeared for me. Anyway, I hope that all made sense. I hope that even if you attend your state conference or your ward, whenever, and things are, it doesn't just stick. You don't feel like you're completely lost, because you're not. You keep doing what you're supposed to be doing and keep holding it close. And eventually those gold flakes will appear. And hope you're having a super wonderful, awesome day. Tribe of Testimonies is not sponsored by the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. The music is a traditional hymn, Come Thou Fount of Every Blessing, arranged and performed by Kyle Forsyth. I would love to hear from you. I would love to hear how this podcast is affecting you. And I'm always looking for guests. If you or someone you know would be a great guest, you can reach me at tribeoftestimonies@gmail.com.